Joining us now to break down how Republicans should move forward from this point is Robert Graham, the former chairman of the Arizona Republican Party and the CEO of ROI Global Partners. So, Robert, when we look at what Republicans are doing right now, of course, we're still waiting on whether or not they have a Senate majority. That's something that it looks like it could be the case, but it all comes down to Georgia. But before we get into the details, I want to get your response to the election more broadly. What did you think of the 2020 race?
Well, it's been chaos, to be quite honest. It's been an organized mess. When you look on both sides and you see what's happening with the media versus the energy behind the Biden campaign, I think it's just a positioning by the media to message that their candidate was better. I mean, in Arizona, we had lots of rallies. Obviously, we had the president here quite a few times. We had the vice president here. We had Kamala Harris and Senator Biden here, Vice President Biden here. And every one of the rallies were anemic, to say the best. I mean, to say it the best or nicest way I possibly can. With President Trump, we had thousands and thousands of people. We had energy that was just off the charts. And so when you start to compare these two, and then you look at the popular vote versus what's happening at the state levels, it is chaos at this particular point. But again, the legal teams from Trump are fighting hard, leaning into this the best they possibly can. They're trying to organize all of the different accusations, and then they're trying to push into it. If you notice, none of the states have canvassed or certified their elections yet. And so they've got deadlines that they're pushing into, but they're trying to present real material evidence as we go forward. So overall, the election was a normal election with a lot of veracity on both sides, but the media spun everything to the left, and it was pretty pathetic in every sense of the word.
And in a way, it started with your home state of Arizona. It got called very early, and there's still votes being counted. We still see how thin that margin is when it comes to Joe Biden and President Trump. And even if Joe Biden ends up winning that state, I still think it was just too close to call that early on. Acknowledging that what you just brought up, the fact that there are ongoing legal challenges in multiple states. Pennsylvania is the one that a lot of people are focusing on today. But do you think other Republicans in the leadership, such as Mitch McConnell or Marco Rubio, for example, do you think that they're doing enough to fight for the president at this time, or do you think that they are looking ahead to a potential Biden administration?
Well, I think if you look at Senator Rubio's comments that you mentioned earlier in this spot, it's premature in every sense of the word. You have to let the states kind of work it out. If you've noticed, these election officials might say there's no funny business, but nobody's certifying their elections. They're doing that because they know there's a material investigation going on, and they don't want to step into it by certifying and then have them find out that their states were part of the fraudulent exercise that's been going on. Again, if the accusations are false, we'll find out. If they're real, we're going to find out. And then Mitch McConnell's, kind of staying in the center of the aisle as it relates to leaning one way or the other. But the reality is that we all have to hunker down and make sure this is a fair and equitable election. That's the biggest thing that you hear the president saying. Hey, if it was stolen from him, we're going to find out. If it wasn't, we will find out.
And when it comes to those Senate Republicans as well, a lot of them, I feel like, are in this position where they don't have to run for re-election right now. They don't necessarily have as much invested in President Trump as perhaps many of his supporters do. But does it appear that this voter fraud issue, almost to a degree, could be used in case Joe Biden does end up winning the presidency and the election is certified? Is this something that they can almost hold over his head and say, this wasn't a legitimate election, we want a special counsel, almost using it the same way as Democrats used the Russia investigation against President Trump?
Yeah, I believe so, but I don't think it'll go that far. I think Republicans are more sensible. I mean, look at the marches. You had a lot of protests on the Republican side so far. Nobody's bashing anybody's heads in and burning property or doing what they're doing. The Senate Republicans at this particular point, politicians tend to hedge. And that's the kind of greasy, smarmy thing that we don't like as a public. And so you're seeing some hedge right now, early on. The other ones that take a position and they lean into it one way or the other, they're going to weather the storm a little bit better. But the American people are going to put pressure on the Senate. Look, the investigation that we had the last 4 years from the Democrats was absurd. I mean, there was no evidence. And the hypocrisy right now that's happening in the media and the Democrats pointing at Republicans saying this is absurd. I mean, what is this, like 14 days, not even 14 days since the election? And they did it for 4 freaking years. I got to tell you, you get to the point where it's exhausting. If he won, he won. If they believe that there's no evidence, then they just need to back off a little bit, let the investigations happen, and let their points be proven. But again, I think Senators, Mitch McConnell's done it before with President Obama. He can slow roll things. He can slow roll legislation. He can push for bipartisan efforts. And then if he doesn't like it, and the Senate Republicans don't like it, they can stop it in its tracks. And I think that's one of the greatest balances when you see something like this happen in our country. We've got to hang on to that Senate.
Yeah, and I think that it's really telling right now that there are a lot of people saying President Trump and other Republicans are sowing distrust in our election system. But for the past 4 years, we were told that Russia was coming into our election systems, aligning with the Trump campaign in order to undermine our democracy. And look how that turned out. I think that's all that our viewers have to know when they look ahead at these latest allegations. But Robert Graham, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight and breaking down this issue. Thank you.